Welcome back to the Lumiose Post, where we talk about all things Pokemon, and well, you already know what's going on. The Indigo disc dropped yesterday or 2 days ago, depending on where you are. But yeah, the point is Indigo disc is out, and with it, we have 8 brand new Pokemon, and we're going to cover all of them, their origins, little design details that I think are neat, and we'll even talk about how to get these fellas. So first, let's start with the one that first, let's start with a spoiler warning. Obviously, I'm going to show these Pokemon, and then I'm going to talk about how to get them and what they are. If you don't want that information, what are you doing? Leave. Go on. Get out of here. Okay, so we're first going to be talking about the one that I most enjoy. This is the Pokemon that I just love from the minute I saw it, and that is Hydrapple. Hydrapple is the evolution to Dipplin, who of course we met back in the Teal Mask, and now he's evolved. He has multiple heads. Really cool, really cool. So what's this thing based off of? Well, there's actually a lot going on in this design, and I love it. So obviously this thing is pulling from a Hydra, hence Hydrapple, Hydra, you see. Dipplin, we already knew, did have 2 worms living inside the apple. Well, Hydrapple, it seems that those 2 worms, they got together and they had some babies or something. I don't know. Point is, they have multiplied, and there are now multiple heads inside this apple, and it seems that this is a more fickle Pokemon. They don't really work together very well because its signature move, Fickle Beam, does 80 base power, but has the chance to do double damage, so 160 base power, and that is just if the heads decide that they all want to cooperate at that time, which I love. I love everything about this thing. I love so much. But this isn't all we're seeing. So first off, the Hydra inspiration here could very well be a kind of Easter egg to Hydreigon, because after all, the Blueberry Academy is in the Unova region, and we've seen a ton of nods to Unova, right? Like Lacey and Drayton are both clearly related to Clay and Drayton, and we even see the music in the Blueberry Academy is very reminiscent of the Unova region, and also so are some of the locations at that. I mean, they're Chargestone Cavern, direct reference to Chargestone Cave. So I say this to say they're going heavy with the Unova references, and I think that there's a decent chance that that's what was going on here with Hydrapple. It was kind of a nod to Hydreigon because, after all, that is Unova's pseudo-legendary, so kind of its main dragon, right? That's a little speculative on my part, I admit, but I don't know. I buy into it 100%. Also, if you look at this design, it's also very reminiscent of G-Max, Flapple, and Appleton, which makes sense, right? One thing that I wasn't a big fan of when we kind of figured out that Dipplin was going to evolve was that it kind of made me disappointed, because in Sword and Shield, Flapple was one of my favorite Pokemon, and so to see that, it's kind of getting made irrelevant in terms of stats, right? Because Applin has 3 split Evos, Appleton, Flapple, and Dipplin, but now Dipplin gets to go even further. Well, there's not as much incentive to evolve it into Flapple or Appleton. The only way there would be is that if you're in the Galar region, well, you can Gigantamax Flapple and Appleton, and their Gigantamax designs are the same. They look very, they're identical. They look identical. They don't look similar. They are identical. But this design, Hydrapple, is clearly kind of referencing that as well, as it looks very similar to that Gigantamax, which is so cool. I mean, this thing, it's referencing Unova, it's referencing Flapple and Appleton. It's beautiful. I love it. I love it so much. So let's get into a kind of more boring one, just in the sense that we already know about it, and that's Terapagos. Terapagos takes inspiration from the turtle from Urashima Taro, which is typically depicted as kind of this fluffy turtle. Don't know why, but it is. And it even has a small form and a big form, which Terapagos has its normal form and its terrestrial form. Also, Terapagos even has this super terrestrial form. I don't remember the actual name of it, but basically this even bigger form, and this is clearly taking inspiration from the world turtle, which is a turtle that appears in a lot of mythologies. I believe Hindu is one of the mythologies that it comes up in. I apologize if it's not, but it's actually in multiple mythologies, and it is basically the idea that this turtle kind of holds the world on its back. And Tropicos clearly represents this, as in this new form, this special form, you can see it kind of hovering over this globe, you know, and when it's depicted in the Scarlet and Violet book, same thing, it's kind of depicted over the universe, right? So the world turtle themes are very, very heavy there, very obvious, and I'm here for them. I love them. To add to this, you know, if I were to add to this, typically the world turtle is depicted with elephants on its back, like helping support the world. And two of the kind of bigger Paradox Pokemon, the ones that we saw in the marketing for Scarlet and Violet, as well as the ones that were actually Titans that we battled when playing through Scarlet and Violet, were Great Tusk and Iron Treads, which were Paradox Pokemon of Donphan, so elephant Pokemon. So just kind of, again, going heavier with that World Turtle theme. Now, moving into the other two Pokemon we knew about beforehand, that is Iron Crown and Raging Bolt. We also know about Archaudon, we'll get to him too, but Raging Bolt and Iron Crown, these are just following the traditional Paradox themes, as are the new Paradoxes that have been introduced, and that is Gouging Fire and Iron Boulder. Raging Bolt and Gouging Fire, they're based off of like Brontosaurus and Styracosaurus, I think is how it's pronounced. Sorry. But yeah, you know, just dinos. Traditional past Paradox thing here, just dinos. And then with Iron Crown and Iron Boulder, they're just, you know, your regular old robot Paradoxes. Pretty traditional for Pokemon Violet. Now, Archaudon, we've talked about this many, many times before, but Archaudon is a bridge, which is reminiscent of Unova, because, again, it's more Unova references here, because Unova is very well known for its 5 bridges. Those are kind of a big deal in the Unova region, more a big deal in the marketing and the promotions of those games. So, yeah, it makes sense that a Pokemon would be here that is that. And also a really cool fact about Archaudon, Archaudon actually has a base stat total of 600. Now, in Japan, they have something they call the 600 Club, or something to that effect, and that is what we in the West call pseudo-legendary. So these are your things like Dragonite, Metagross, Tyranitar, Garchomp, etc., etc. These are Pokemon that are not legendary Pokemon, but have the base stat total of 600. So they're like up there with legendary Pokemon in terms of base stat total. Well, Archaudon has this. It's not legendary, and it has a base stat total of 600, which is really cool because that means Archaudon is our first 2-stage pseudo, because it's not a 3-stage line, you know. All the other pseudos are 3 stages. You have Dratini, Dragonair, Dragonite, Beldum, Metang, Metagross, Duraludon, Archaudon. So that's really cool. Breaking patterns, you know. I've always said people are always going in the Pokemon community, oh, well, this will be this because if you look at the pattern, then this is supposed to be next. Or, oh, they won't do this because they've never done that before. Man, GameFreak breaks patterns every freaking game. And they break patterns not just every freaking game, but every freaking DLC expansion. There are patterns broken in the Teal Mask, and there are now patterns broken in the Indigo Disc. So, get over it. Now, moving into the next Pokemon, we have the kind of mythical Pokemon. We're assuming it's a mythical. I don't know if there's any confirmation on that, but that is Pecharunt. Pecharunt is the Dokutaro Pokemon that we talked about for the longest time. We actually can see it in-game over at Peachy's, as well as during Ogerpon's like backstory, its origin story that we learned back in the Teal Mask. This is that Pokemon. Now, this is clearly based off of Momotaro, because that whole arc, the Teal Mask arc, was based off the story of Momotaro, and that's why it's got some peach theme in its design, is because it, you know, well, Momotaro is the peach boy. He was born from a peach. Also, it being Pecharunt is a really cool reference that I love, because the Pecha Berry is an item in Pokemon. It's a berry in the Pokemon world that is supposed to be similar to a peach. It is like the peach equivalent of the Pokemon world. So I love that instead of just naming this thing like Pecharunt or Peachakid or whatever, I think a lot of people are thinking like Peachakeen. I love that they did Pecha, because that's the Pokemon version of Peach. I thought that was really neat. Maybe that's just me. But yeah, I 100% love that. And that's where we get into how we get these fellas. Well, like I said, Petromont is a mythical Pokemon. It has not been distributed yet. We know from data that it seems to be tied to an item called the Mythical Pecha Berry. But that isn't distributed now. If I had to take a guess at when that would be distributed, I would guess Pokemon Day. That kind of seems like the obvious time to do it. You know, I think about that's typically when events are released in Pokemon. Like, I believe that's when they released the Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, like, Darkrai event. That's where we got Daybreak for Legends Arceus. That's when we got the raids for Iron Leaves and Walking Wake. So it just makes sense to me that on Pokemon Day, which is February 27th, 2024, there'll be a Pokemon Presents, and it will announce an event to get Petromont in-game. Now for our evolutions, Archaludon and Hydrapple. So Archaludon, you have to use the Metal Alloy on Duraludon to evolve it. The Metal Alloy is actually super easy to get. All you have to do is go to the shop in the Blueberry Academy. Now, not the one in the terrarium, not like the vending machines or anything like that. It's like the actual Blueberry Academy shop. And you can purchase the Metal Alloy there, as well as TMs, rare candies, a bunch of really cool stuff that might be useful. You can purchase there, all for BP, Blueberry points. The Metal Alloy costs 300 Blueberry points. Now, you can get Blueberry points by doing BBQs, which are Blueberry quests. They get Blueberry points, and then you can use those to then purchase the Metal Alloy to evolve Duraludon into Archaludon. Now, for Hydrapple, it actually gets much easier. So, with Hydrapple, all you need to do is teach Dipplin Dragon Cheer and level it up. Now, the interesting thing is, Teal Mask and Indigo Disc both gave us new TMs in the games. And with Teal Mask, you just literally, you walked up to the TM machine and you had them all right there. You could go ahead and use all of them. That wasn't the case with Indigo Disc. With Indigo Disc, they actually do kind of lock it behind you finding the TM out in the open. So, where you find Dragon Cheer is you actually have to defeat Drayton in the Blueberry League, the Blueberry Elite Four member Drayton. You have to defeat him, and then he will give you Dragon Cheer. And then not only can you just use that TM to teach your Dipplin it right then and there and evolve it, but you also will be able to access it from the TM machine, so you can evolve any future Dipplin you may have. So that's pretty neat. Then moving on to our last 5 Pokemon, and that is, of course, Iron Crown, Iron Boulder, and Gouging Fire and Raging Bolt. New names, still learning them. And then Terapagos. So Terapagos, I'm not going to get into story spoilers because, to be frank with you, I don't know the story spoilers myself. But play through the game and you will get Terapagos at the end of it. Or maybe not even at the end of it. I imagine at the end of it, though. But the point is, just play through the game. Play through the story, you'll get Terapagos. Now, for Iron Crown and Iron Boulder, that's obviously exclusive to Violet version. And Gouging Fire and Raging Bolt, that's exclusive to Scarlet version. You're going to actually not need to go to Area 0 like many of us thought. Instead, you are going to need to talk to Perrin, and she is right there when you enter the terrarium, and she'll tell you, like, she's got this hot tip. If you get 200 Pokemon in your Blueberry Dex, she'll tell you this hot tip. Well, do that, come back, talk to her, and she'll be like, absolutely, here's the deal. There are these Pokemon in Area 0, and you can do this plot to get Iron Crown and Iron Boulder in Violet, or Raging Bolt and Gouging Fire in Scarlet. So, that's how you get those. Just so you're aware, these are static encounters. So they are not, you're not going to be able to find multiple of them. You're finding the one Iron Crown, the one Iron Boulder, or the one Gouging Fire, the one Raging Bolt. Kind of sucks. They are also shiny locked, so just keep that in mind. So there you go, guys. That is the origins behind all these Pokemon and also how to find them. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. I'm going to be playing Indigo Disc this weekend, and, you know, when I'm done, I'm sure I will have a plethora of theories to get into, so you don't want to miss that. So again, subscribe, like, it shows support, all that stuff. And until next time, I will see all of you later.